Hey guys, it's Kim here, and I'm joined by Becky. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello. We are on part 3 of our Majora's Mask and Splicer Mask tutorial. So if you've just slid into this YouTube of videos, check the video description down below. There are links to parts 1 and 2 where we built a mold, clay mold to sculpt the WORBLA on. That was part 2. So yeah, that's oh, what happened there?
I had some sticking issues with my mask. Majora's mold is even worse.
Oh, no.
That's on the floor. That has suffered.
Oh dear.
So anyway, we built a mold, we sculpted some WORBLA, and now we have some masks.
We are ready to paint. So why don't you talk us through what it is you've done so far? Because obviously this has come on leaps and bounds since the last tutorial.
A lot's been happening. Also, just 39 salted cookies says not enough lube. So it turns out that it might have been too much lube just for people who want to do this themselves. So I think I have a different level of Vaseline that I use, because I use Vaseline on my eyes because they get very dry and I have to use a lot. And I think most people just put like a tiny thin layer on their lips. So when people say a lot of Vaseline, I kind of think layers and layers. And because the heat gun might have been melting so much Vaseline that it just sank into the clay and made it soft again.
Right.
Whereas actually using less, there's not enough to kind of create that softness where the clay is almost clay again.
Okay.
So,
and for context, for those of you who did not see part 2 of the tutorial, the Vaseline was put onto the clay molds before the WORBLA was melted onto it, just in case you think we're just talking about lube here, you know, because that's what we do in our spare time.
I reached out to the woman I did the WORBLA course with and said, this is happening, and she was like, I've never had that problem, and I was like, okay.
You've always got to be special, Becky. You've always got to be special.
I've got to find a problem that no one else has ever had, because that's just how I roll. Right, so what I have done some... First I've used gesso or gesso. Everyone's in debate about how this is said. I've used some black gesso primer I've used a lot of layers. So Majora's Mask I think has had 6-7 layers.
Wow.
The Splicer Mask has had like 3 or 4. But the trick is like gesso can really smooth out any kind of errors or joins or things, and it dries really quickly, especially in this heat.
So for the uninitiated, what does the primer do? I think I know what it does after how many weeks of streaming with you, but just for the uninitiated.
Kim, do you want to try and explain what the primer does?
Basically seals the mask and then makes it kind of even, so that when you paint it, it's kind of an even layer that you're painting over. But then my next question is, why 6 or 7 layers? And how do you know it needs 6 or 7 layers of primer?
Okay, so there's a couple of things to talk about here. Because WORBLA is basically plastic, like, you know, if you use some paints on the top of plastic, they will just kind of slip off.
Yeah,
there's nothing for the paint to grab onto. So you can paint on top of WORBLA, but actually like something like spray paint is best for that. Like painting on with anything water-based is going to be tricky. So the primer gives us something for the paint to grab into, but also with gesso is, I think we talked about this last week, is acrylic with like a chalk. It's got like fiber in it, like chalk dust, so it's actually quite solid and quite structural, so it's almost like applying a really thin layer of clay onto your mold, and so you can use this to smooth out, you know, errors, seams, etc. So the more layers you put on and sand and put more on, the smoother it will get. Now I don't want this to be completely smooth because I want a bit of rough, and I went in with the soldering iron and creating some I don't know if you can see that. Created some kind of, I roughed it up a bit. Okay.
If you tip it backwards, so tip it, that's it, there we go.
So you can,
I kind of hate it.
It's terrifying.
Just because now that it's got the eyes are painted in, I'm like, that's horrible. In the best way.
When it was all black, I kind of, put it on my mask and I put it on my wall, and I was like, oh, that looks really nice. And now it's getting painted. I'm a bit like,
it's horrible. Yeah, you can see why it's cursed.
But But yeah, I went in with a soldering iron on the combs and really created like a wood texture on them.
Okay.
So
yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
You'll see it really nicely later when we do a bit of weathering on it and we do some black wash, because the paint will kind of fill up in those grooves and really give it a lovely texture. So yeah, this is terrifying right now, this mask. So yeah, that's had about 7 layers of gesso. It's also had, I've glossed the black bits. I'm going to have to redo these bits because my airbrushing is not that great, and I ran out of masking tape. So I'm going to have to go back over these, but I've glossed these bits because they're really shiny. And I've glossed the eyes to make them really pop and shine as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's why
really
it looks it looks like jelly.
Yeah. And these bits, I did more gesso on these bits than on this bit, because if you look at the mask, like this bit is a bit more textured and these bits are a little bit more smooth. So I've really played with the textures, and that's something that's quite fun that you can do. So, and then I've airbrushed these, painted these, airbrushed on the little bits and airbrushed the eyes, because airbrushing is really good. Like if you're using acrylic paint on top of a gloss, that doesn't really work. Like if I was, because you get the acrylic paint finish because it's quite thick, so you'd need to do acrylic paint and then gloss. I did gloss on these first, so I've airbrushed the eyes in.
So,
Yeah.
what paints can you use to paint on this? I know obviously you're using Arteza, not sponsored.
What paints am I using, everyone?
But like, what kind of paints can you use to paint on this mother?
Again, and you know, I'm so glad that we did the Nova stream and we redeemed my love of watercolors, because you know what I'm gonna say,
Can't use watercolors.
Can't use watercolors. Look, watercolors are for painting pictures. They're not for painting any form of sculpture. Okay. Yeah. So I'm using Arteza acrylic paints, but any poster paints, acrylic paints, house paints, any form of, you know, structural paint. I don't know what to call, because mine are water-based. So like, I don't want to say not water-based paints, because I use water-based paints. But not paints that you work with water, I guess. I don't know. Does anyone have a more technical term for what acrylics like and paints with structure are? Because poster paints, acrylic paints, wall paints, house paints, those kind of things.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to be using
not paints you dilute.
Not paints that you dilute. Yeah.
Diadishi says I would stick with acrylics. Thick, viscous paints.
Viscous paints. Yeah, that might be paints, or maybe what we actually need to say is like liquid paints, not paints that, because watercolors, I mean, you can get liquid watercolors though, but watercolors generally start in a solid form and you add water to make them into paint.
Talkmatic says dummy thick, 2 C's. That's what the children. That's how the children communicate nowadays, Becky. That you need to bring the arts teaching down to their level. I mean, up to their level. I mean, match their level. Yeah.
Kim, what are you trying to say here?
You need dummy thick paints.
I'm not sure I can bring myself to say dummy thick paint. That was unhappy. I didn't like that.
You
Look,
can use.
I'm not young, okay?
Thick. Dunk says, dumb it down to us. Dumb it down to our thickness. Dummy it down to our thickness. Thick. Get down with the thickness. Gotta get up, get it down with the thickness.
I'm unhappy right now.
Excellent. That's where we all aspire to be. Diodishi suggests you could also use oil paints to create gradients or shadows.
Yeah. I think basically, you know, don't go out and buy acrylic paints if you've got like poster paints at home or something. If you've got some house paints left in the house, like those will work fine. Like I do want to encourage people to buy paints because I want to encourage a craft revolution, but I don't want to tell people they have to buy something specific before they've kind of experimented and tried things. Like, go experiment first, play around. So there's lots of detail on the mask, but I'm going to do a purple over all the kind of the outer background because it's like purple and then it's kind of a reddish pink and then there's like some green and whites and all sorts and orange bits up here. But we're going to start with a purple and then we're going to go on top of that.
Okay.
So, because that's probably the easiest way to go. This is going to be a terrifying mask. Like, I'm already scared by it.
Brilliant. I love it. It's the state that I like to be in. Terrified in my own home.
I mean, you wanted to put this on your wall.
Oh, it's going on my wall. It's definitely going on my wall. What? Blah 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 blah. Any particular techniques, or is it just slap it on?
Slap it on. I'm gonna slap it on to start with, and then I'll probably go back in and do some like details with other colors and things, because I really want to give this a bit more of a kind of look to it. And I really think there's going to be a lot of kind of aging and things that weathering that comes in on this mask, because it does look. I've got this great picture in front of me that is like, it's from the game. I think it's a promo image from the game, actually, from one of the trailers that was like, you know, one of the trailers that is not in-game footage, one of those classics, and it is so like. It looks so kind of hand carved, and it's so much creepier, I think, kind of looking hand carved than looking kind of, you know, plasticky. And
I think that's the thing. Yeah, the video game, like, it's making. I think sometimes that's the problem with like making video game things in real life. Like, you kind of make it look like the video game rather than like what would this look like in real life. And in real life, Majora's Mask is a scary mother trucker. So yeah. Right, how's it going with you? It looks good. It kind of looks better now that the purple's on it. The eyes look slightly less terrifying.
I think they're less. I think they'll also get less terrifying once we do the kind of green centers. I hope. I don't know.
They look like wobbly jelly. You know the jelly that you have in your eye? It looks like that.
Yeah, they look like eyes.
Yeah. But, like, no, if you just had the jelly without the surface, like corneas and stuff. This may be because I was literally reading Sandman this morning and there was a storyline about what the goo in your eye is called.
Yeah.
Becky, those eyes look amazing.
Thanks, Kim. Look at the creepy eyes.
So that's literally just. So what you did before was you spray painted a layer on, and then you've just painted a layer on.
So these have been this bit's been done by airbrushing, and then this has been done by I had a dark green, a light green, and a white, and I basically pulled the dark green from the outside in, and then put a little bit of white and a little bit of mid-green and pulled that from the inside out, and that's just given that kind of tonal transition.
Yeah. It looks so natural.
It's looking great.
So
I know
good.
I have this like sometimes where my brain does tell me quite regularly that things are going to be terrible.
Your inner saboteur.
My inner saboteur, and also like a lot of the time with craft stuff, it doesn't come off until the end. Like there's so much in between where you're like, oh, it's not looking right. Oh, it's going to be terrible.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it goes, oh, I know. Oh, it works.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm really pleased with those eyes.
Yeah, it looks great.
And I think because I've got some white out here now from doing the eyes, I'm just going to go in and try and do the white bits. Like there's a white line here and there's white lines here, and just going to go in and try and do those bits
sort of
now.
tribal markings.
Tribal marking.
Fun Gussie says, imagine glow-in-the-dark paints on the pupils. Oh.
You know when you could make something that's already quite creepy even more creepy?
Yeah.
And part of your brain kind of goes, I shouldn't do this. Like I did consider like cutting out the eyes and putting like LEDs in them or something. And I was like, it's too much. It's too much to start.
Oh my gosh. That's looking amazing. So white tribal markings next.
White tribal markings are happening next. There's a little bit green in my white, so I'm just going to remove that.
39 Salt Cookie says, are you going to line the irises in black like in the picture?
I am indeed. So the black, like I've got these black shiny bits, but I'm also going to do like black around here. So I'm going to go back in with my black. Probably that's one of the last things I'll want to do. Yeah, because I think that will really define the irises, and we might bring a bit of black into, like, there's these lines that I put in with the soldering iron on the eye, and I might bring a little bit of black into that as well, just to really weather it.
Nice.
And make it a creep fest.
Woo!
Yeah. So that's where we're going. This is one of those things that I could, like, people who are professionals would probably mask out the lines or create a stencil or something. I'm gonna eyeball it because that's the kind of mentalist I am.
So you could mark them out. You could do that, or you could just free form it, free foam it, free
hand it.
That, yeah. Do what Becky's doing.
But I kind of like, you know, I like doing this, and I like brushing kind of gently, and painting a bit painterly, because it just looks more natural. Like, presumably, Majora's Mask, the real existent Majora's Mask, was hand painted.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, you know, it should have a bit of a hand painted look to it, I feel.
Yeah. Space Bear says, is it heavy?
No, it's so light.
Yeah.
It's
Dong
like
the side. Dong, dong, dong.
probably it's hollow.
Yeah.
And this probably weighs, like, I need to ask you about what you want on the back end.
Okay.
This probably weighs, I don't know, 100 grams.
Nice. Because it's plastic, isn't it? You've painted a lot of lines on there. What is next?
I'm gonna weather these bits a little bit, because I think to bring out the lines and really show those off. And then I'll just go back in and I'll do the black lines round the eyes, and then I think we'll put Majora's Mask to one side, because we've got it into a really nice state, and I'll do the last details just finishing off another time.
Okay.
But you can see what we've done, and it looks great.
I mean, we could always finish it on this stream and do the Splicer Mask next stream, maybe.
Yeah? What do people think?
Well, people in chat, let us know what you think. But for now, if you teach us how to do some weathering.
Weathering. So I'm going to do these with a wash, because I want the colour to collect in these lines I've, like, dabbed in with the soldering iron. So if I was, you know, dry brushing will kind of go everywhere, wash will go into the cracks, and the rest can be wiped off. So we need a cloth, we need our paint colours, which I've got, I mean, you can't see it in the mess that is my palette, but I've got a raw sienna and a black. And I'm just going to mix those together into a nice, you know, muted brown, and then give that a bunch of water. Gonna make it look scrappy. And then I actually need some clean water for this. I've got another pot somewhere, surely. I've always got a pot. I'll just put some water on, I think. Just gonna take that off, rest of it, leave it highlighting.
For those who have not watched our other tutorials where we feature washes, what are you doing to wash it?
I've got basically my paint nice and watered down, and then I'm using a damp cloth to kind of rub it off from all the places it's not sticking. So it's kind of, if I just rub over the top with the wet cloth, then the paint gets caught in these kind of grooves, the textures that I've created on this, and gives it, just makes it look a bit more textured and a bit more like wood,
less
and a bit
cartoony,
less cartoony. Just basically, washes and weathering are creating depth. You're giving texture to your things. You just want to, because like solid paint, natural things aren't solid colors often. they're often lots of different colors, and they're often textured, and they're nice. That's not the right word. They're nice. Like a solid block single color is unusual in the real world. So we just want to, you know, not have that really. And yeah, this is the point of creating like scars and things on. I need to get some water in a pot soon. I talked about this last week briefly, that you can go into WORBLA with a soldering iron and create like grooves and things. And this is the point of kind of doing that, is create a more interesting texture and give, look at that one, that's turned out really
nice. Yeah.
So that's really looking like wood a bit more now than like.
Do you dilute the paint in the pan? So did you dilute that? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's nice and watery and washy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's picking up some red from underneath, which it's fine. It's all fine. So yeah, and I'm probably adding some water as it goes on, so that it's really kind of a wet wash. Really.
And those red spikes, did you airbrush that, right?
Yeah, just to get that kind of natural. You know, I didn't want it to look like I'd painted it on. I wanted it to look a bit. I don't know what that comes from in Majora's Mask, if there's a legend to that. But I wanted it to really kind of have quite an organic look to it.
Yeah.
And airbrushing is great for that.
Fun Gussie says, "Oh my god, these washes add so much character to the mask." Yeah, I think that's the thing. It lifts it away from being cartoony to being more realistic and more like you say, weathered, like an organic item.
And this is the thing about weathering. Like, we could spend an entire stream on weathering it, because there's just so. You can do so much to make your masks, like, or to make any of your sculpts or creations so much more interesting and so much more real looking, just by kind of weathering in texture, essentially.
Nice.
So look how good that's looking.
That's great.
So okay, I'm gonna keep weathering some cones then.
Yeah, weather them cones.
We've done weathering on the spikes, the horns. What do we need to do now?
Colour
there's
the
orangey bits at the top, isn't there?
Yeah, and the bottom horns are blue-green.
I'm leaving those because I want to airbrush those, so I won't finish those, or I won't finish those on stream. I will go and do those afterwards, just because they look really nice airbrushed. Like, it really works.
Yeah, no.
So I just, because in an airbrush you've got to kind of wash it out every time you change colour, I did not have time.
If you don't have an airbrush, what else could you do? Just paint it.
Very gently doing it with a brush will work. Like sponge would be good for this. Like, gently sponging it on.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you've got spray paints also good. I love spray paints. They're bad for the environment, but it's why I bought an airbrush, because I was like, I want to stop using spray paints because they're not great for the environment. I want to use an airbrush, but I still paints. It just worked so well. But yes, it's toothbrush and flick. Yeah, you could use like a flicking. You could get more of a spatter on there. That could be fun.
I remember having this really cool thing when I was a kid, where it's essentially like a big pump, like a squeezy pump, and then it had a brace in it that you could put felt tip pens, attach it like to
I had one of
the pump
those.
is. So you squeeze the pump, and then it blows air out through the felt tip pen, and then the felt tip pen like splatters onto something like a basic airbrush, basically.
They were amazing.
Yeah.
What were they called? They were wonderful.
Basic bitch airbrush.
Basic bitch airbrush. Felt tip pen airbrush. I don't know. They were blow pens. Yeah.
Blow pens. Oh.
They were great. Sorry, I am like stuttering here because my brain is melting. So just sort of gone into a bit of a brain melty weird place, because my brain just wants to go.
Are you gonna do a wash on the red bit at all?
Yeah, I think I will.
The kind of the mouth bit.
I also kind of want to go in with like some dry brushing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'd like to
what
see
do I
that.
want to- You'd like to see that? Okay.
Yeah, so the options we have are the orange bits on the top,
Yep.
dry brushing the mouth area to make it a bit more weathered, and then
Let's do a
finishing
bit
off
of
the
dry
black
brushing.
around the eyes.
Let's do a bit of dry brushing. I need a different paint for this. Yeah, we're going to dry brush this. So no
Remind me what
water,
that
very
is.
dry brush. Basically, it's painting but dry. Brain melt. So you don't use any water and you want to use little paint. So going to start with a black just so I can kind of show this a bit better. So you take your kind of palette of paint and you want to kind of put some paint on your brush and then kind of brush most of it off. So you've basically got a brush that's kind of loaded with paint, but it's not wet with paint. It's like a dry kind of feel. That made sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're just going to take that from the kind of hollows and bring that in.
And is there any particular like stroke or way that you apply it?
I would start from like corners out, so like dips, because the places where you get like dirt and collecting and you get shadows is in those kind of corners and hollows. So I would start from there. I've got a kind of crimson red that I've just mixed in with some green.
Whoops.
I need a new palette. I need a bigger palette and a new palette. So yeah, I've got a bit of black and I've got a bit of dark red here, and I'm just going to use both of those to kind of. I'm going to get the green off my brush first. Adventures in dry brushing. So just both a bit of red, dark red, and a bit of black to kind of really blend this in with the red underneath. Just like keep rubbing at it. If it looks like it's going on kind of blotchy, just keep working it in until it gets like a nice smooth kind of finish. Or leave it really scruffy and do it in like lines and things, because you might want a bit more of a kind of, like if you wanted to give a wood effect, kind of more of a wood effect to this, you might want to dry brush almost in lines to kind of give that wood effect. So
make it grainy.
Just see if we can do a bit of that.
It's sort of terrifying that this thing is just staring up at everybody in the stream, in the audience, just like, how many of our souls have been absorbed over the course of this stream?
I mean, what you're proving here is that I really am great at making soul-eating things.
Yeah? You and that monster child of yours?
This and my monster child. So yeah, you can dry brush in. I know I put my hand completely over that. That's just dry brushing in some black, kind of.
Yeah, wood grain.
Give a bit of wood grain. So yeah, if you want to, this is really blending in, coming in from the shadows, but you can also kind of create that wood grain with your dry brushing.
I think I'm going to put this over my bed.
Oh God. You're a terrifying creature, but sure, you do whatever you want with it.
Or I might just put it in the basement. Like, just so you go down in the basement and forget it's there, and then you just see it. Ah!
You're like, ah!
Yeah. I might try and put it up behind here, actually. And put it on the... Can I put it on the wall back here if I see? Yeah. Maybe I'll put it behind me so people can see it in every stream.
People can have their souls stolen all the time.
Move it around the house randomly to scare Ted.
Ted, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm actually taking a bit of the red just over the white here, because I think the white line is almost like it's almost too perfect.
Yeah, it needs a bit of weathering and a bit of fade on it.
Bit of roughing up, I would almost say. So I'm just gonna kind of bleed the red into the.
I think again, it's that kind of thing where it takes it away from being cartoony and makes it look like.
Yeah, it makes it real. I think is always my thing with like weathering. Like I want stuff to look like it exists in the world, and in order to do that, like it can't be like solid big block colors. It really needs to be weathered and be worked and feel like it's existed as well.
Yeah.
Like if you're making something something futuristic, something that's very kind of new and is cartoony. Like if you're doing a kind of, I don't know, like if you're making a prop from Speed Racer or something, like you probably won't want to weather. You'll probably want very distinct colors. You want very strong like lines. You want to see that it's new and it's shiny and it's that kind of look. But this is not that kind of look. This is a haunted wooden mask. So it needs to look like a haunted wooden mask.
Nixium says, does Ted know you're going to bring a cursed object that will definitely end all of humanity into the house? He's already met Milo. What are you talking about? Jesus.
So yeah, I'm just going to turn this upside down just so you can see the kind of...
Nice.
So that's really coming in there.
The weathering on the spikes looks amazing.
Oh, I'm really proud of that because there was a sort of point when I had it like all done and like all built in WORBLA, and then I was sitting there with my soldering iron, just going, am I really going to do this? Am I really, now just going to hack at this with the soldering iron? I could completely ruin this. And I had the Majora's Mask mold really, when I took this out,
broke.
It's gone. It's really gone. Like it's not coming back from that. Like the Splicer mask I can probably repair. Like the Majora's Mask, no, I had to destroy it to get it out. So I was like, if I mess this up, I can't make another one. And I'm so glad that I did those real gouges into those bits because I think they've really added so much to it.
We got a question in chat from Synthal. Question, can you use oil paint on WORBLA?
Yeah, I would say so. Very similar in consistency to acrylic. But again, like it's really good to put a primer down. Like if in doubt, just always put a primer down. D.I. Dishy says I wouldn't. D.I. Dishy knows more than me. Listen to D.I. Dishy.
I guess oil would be a bit like watercolor and it's a bit too sticky and slicky.
Yeah, although it's got the same consistency as acrylic. It's why a lot of people start off with acrylics because they're cheaper, but you can get the same kind of effect from them.
D.I. Dishy says it's because it takes ages to dry.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. So you could, but just be aware of, what you're gonna have to deal with. Yeah, like this, also we're in this heat, but like this red I painted when we started the stream and it's dry, completely dry. So it's just that,
D.I. Dishy clarifies further and says, I use oil paints to add shades and grime because you can wipe it away and then you can use it to create gradients.
Very good. So actually use acrylics for your base and oil for your weathering. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So that, sort of makes sense. It's good to have D.I. Dishy. It's that, we're very open to having people who have other skill sets and can contribute because I am what I actually learned the other day, because I've heard the word autodidact a lot, but I've one of those words where you're like, I think I know what this means.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of like, do I know what this means? And autodidact are people who've taught themselves. So I am a complete creative autodidact. Like I've gone on courses to learn mainly techniques, but a lot of my making is me kind of just going, I want to make this thing. I made this thing.
But also this is how we learn, really, is,
that's how we learn.
With sharing each other's experiences.
Yeah, so I am completely, happy to say, D.I. Dishy, please tell us things. Yeah, oil paints. I would never use oil paints because they're too expensive. That's my main thing.
Well, I think Synthal originally asked because they apparently have loads left from uni. So.
Okay. Then, yeah, use them up. Just be aware of the time it takes.
Yeah.
And great for weathering.
Yeah, if you're fine with the drying times, then go wild.
Have fun. Basically, I will try and use stuff up I've got in the house before I go into other stuff. It's always, we don't want to be wasteful, and if I've got stuff that I'm not going to use, I try and give it away to people. So yeah, this is another thing as well, like the first color you put on kind of as your base, like your block color, is really just a base color. Like I've done so much work now that there's not much that still exists there in the original red. So don't be afraid if you put your base color on and you're like, oh, it looks terrible. Like, I think this is too bright. I think we need to take this down as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't be afraid if your base color looks wrong, because if you're going to weather and work over it, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
It's all good. You know, you can fix things. You can paint over stuff. Just remain calm and keep working. But that's looking, the red on that. I really want to go in and do the black around the eyes, because I think that. So I think I really want to do that.
Yeah.
I might do a bit of pull this purple. There's so much left to paint on this. Why is Majora's Mask so complicated?
Because it's a cursed thing of the thing.
It is a cursed thing of the thing. It's a cursed thing of the thing. I've just made both my nice pots of water the same colour.
Yeah, you
I
have.
don't really know how I've done
right.
that. Also, I did this green and I did it over the purple. Did it do it thick, so it's not a solid green. You can still see bits of the purple poking through, and I kind of really like that. It looks really natural. So I'm very happy with how that's turned out.
I think there's definitely some dark art about weathering and dry brushing. Like, it's really taken it from that kind of bright, wonderful thing to what it is now. Like, yeah.
It is magical, and I think it's one of those things. I'm not criticizing anyone, but I think it's one of those things that you see quite a lot on, you know, people who are starting out in craft that they haven't got yet. And when you're looking at things, you're like, why doesn't it look as good as it could? And I think weathering is one of those things that you sort of get into as you go. And sometimes when you're starting out, you don't, you know, because it basically seems like painting your thing that you've just spent hours creating to look worse. And that sort of it can mess with your mind a bit when you first try and do it.
Yeah.
Sort of
it seems almost like sacrilegious, like I'm ruining it. I'm ruining it.
Yeah,
but,
go
like,
ruin the thing you just spent hours painting to look
Yeah.
perfect. Like, something about that is really, like, mentally quite hard to get over.
Yeah.
And so I think it's the thing that a lot of people starting out kind of avoid and don't do. But it elevates, makes so much. It really does, and it's so worth it. It's just really.
I was going to say something. Oh, we got another hydrate from Nixium. Hydrate. There we go. Oh my god. But yeah, people in chat talking about.
Dishy has said also the fear of overdoing it.
Yeah.
And I think that is it. And I think, you know, you can always add more. Just remember that.
You can't. Was it? You can't take away, but you can add more.
Yeah. So just take it slow. Just start gentle. Start with a lighter color if you want. Just start, you know, like this purple, which is a darker purple. I'm not sure if you can even see the distinction there. So I'm starting with the darker purple, and then I'm working in some black. So the darker purple is only slightly bringing it out, and then the black is really kind of pulling it a bit further. But if I start with the darker purple, I don't kind of put too much on and panic and go, oh no, what? But really, yeah, weathering is your friend.
So I think it's almost there, isn't it? So obviously you're weathering the top bit before painting on the last bit. So you're going to go back and like dampen them down a bit?
Yeah, probably. I just want to kind of get the purple. The purple's kind of annoying me a bit. It's a bit too overbearing right now. So I just want to kind of try and pull the purple out a little bit. Yeah, I've got a 3D. I've got access to a 3D printer, and I would still choose to make this out of
WORBLA. WORBLA, WORBLA, WORBLA. We're starting the WORBLA cult. WORBLA!
So I'm just going in with the black to paint the eye detail, and then we'll do something fun. I'm just gonna I'm gonna redo the black around the eyes, the outer eyes here, because I went over the edge a bit. And I really want this to be very shiny. Like, these black lines are really gloss.
Okay.
So I'm gonna use my black acrylic, but I'm also gonna add in some gloss Mod Podge and just mix those together.
Okay.
And that'll just mean I'll get such a shiny black finish. It will be beautiful. It's a technique I've used
Falconian
before.
says, when it's really close, it reminds me of a spider for some reason. And Sue Winter says, Becky, it looks so good, but like in a really evil kind of way.
Yeah, it's not like nice. It's not a nice thing, but it is a good thing. It's not a good thing. It's an awesome thing. Awesome is the right word for this. Like, awesome means strikes awe into the heart of something.
Yeah,
I love.
Awesome.
So don't get freaked out if you mix paint colors with Mod Podge, because Mod Podge, when it's wet, is white. You'll get like this looks like a gray paint now, but it will dry black.
Okay.
So don't panic. Like, if you mix things with Mod Podge or gloss or PVA, like, it will, because these glues and glosses dry clear, they will look lovely when they're finished.
Looks so good. Damn. So you're going to finish off the orange bits off stream?
Yep. I'm going to finish off the orange bits. I'm going to airbrush these bits, not those bits, these two
Bottom
bits.
Yeah.
I was like, hang on. These bits, the right colors. So that's a greens and blues. And I will post a picture of the finished thing on Instagram, Twitter, and, you know, Kim will,
nice.
we'll put it out everywhere.
Yeah. So next week we are going to do the Splicer mask. Do you want to show the Splicer mask quickly? So we're going to be painting this little bunny next week. But yeah, it looks amazing, Becky. Like, both masks look really, really cool.
It's one of those times where stuff has actually turned out how I kind of pictured, and I'm pretty happy right now.
Yeah, really, really good. Follow Becky on Twitter and stuff.
And all the things. Come find me. I'm out on the internet.
Yeah, yeah. And if you've missed any of the VODs, check out my YouTube channel. All the VODs are up on there. There we go. But yeah. I'm so hot. I'm struggling. What words?
What do we say?
What?
You tell people when you next are streaming.
Right, we're gonna go. Bye. Like, stick around. We're gonna raid Robotron and hear about his fundraising efforts. So yeah, let's do that. I'm gonna go to this one, this one, and then that one, and then I'm gonna mute the mics. Stick around, raiding time. Bye.